24th, 2015, meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. This is also a duly convened meeting of the interim Raleigh Open Space Committee. And I'll call the roll for attendance. Dave DeMonica.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys is absent. Sam Strife.
Here.
Arthur Page is absent. Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairing, and we have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. We have to sign the paperwork.
Yes, for your consideration. Vendor and bill reimbursements. We now have professionally prepared number 10 business size envelopes with our return address and town seal on them. Cover it up. And Doug, for your review and approval, there's the invoice for said envelopes. Here's the mileage reimbursement request for my attendance at the Mass Land Conservation Conference this past Saturday. And these are invoices for small pack size hammer for doing trail signs.
H10.
And also there's two invoices on that particular sheet there. Got some tool acquisition and stuff out of Staples clearance bin. Thank you very much. Well, we have a brief moment before the convening of the first agenda item. I've distributed to you again the explanation, the summary of the conflict of interest law that previously I had distributed. I don't know if anyone this evening has their signed receipt that they wish to turn in, so I can transport that to the town
It
clerk's
was
office.
printed name, there's no signature, right? Or I can sign it if you want.
Sign it.
Yeah, you want-
Please sign it, yeah.
Did you sign?
I just printed.
Yeah, I don't know. This
Yeah,
is,
I thought it was weird too, but I'll just
yeah.
put it down here.
I didn't prepare it. Well, if you've already read it, there is a copy.
Oh, you gave me another copy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can
Okay.
pull the receipt off the back and.
Will do.
So,
I did
are we
read it.
supposed to do the course? Because I
Yeah.
didn't see anything coming in yet. I mean, I read the thing.
Well, I will be sending you, I just recently
Just wanted it?
received, yeah.
Got it? I'm in no rush.
Apparently it went out in December supposedly to all town and city clerks, but where it went here, but our town clerk has had some,
'Cause I-
recently had a deceased family member, so, but the city clerk in Haverhill distributed stuff, so that's how I kind of became aware of this and just decided that I'd facilitate it through here.
All right, cool.
I thought it was this year. It's every 2 years.
Yeah.
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 I don't think we did it last year.
And every year they do this. That's
I have it on my phone.
Yeah, in the next few days, I'll send you the email that has the link for the online training, and if anyone needs to use computers in the office, that option is always available to you.
Well, if that due to do that, I thought it was every 2 or 3 years we had to do that.
It's every 2 years.
We didn't do it last year, I don't think.
Well, it was supposed to be distributed in December of 2014. And Town and city
get it
clerk,
in
town and
due
city
time.
clerks have a lot to do, so the fact that it just made its way through in one community, I mean, it's, you know,
We're gonna distribute that to basically everything, so.
yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So-
Anything else before we start?
Well, I guess this is very succinct and very brief, so yes. Jean Blanchard and I today were something happened here. We're working on consideration of possible requirements for electronic submittals to accompany the hard copies of our application forms. So what I had previously done was reached out to a few North Shore communities that require electronic submission of their applications, and this is just 2 examples. Obviously, it gets phrased however you choose to use it. Some communities use it in their checklist sheet like we have for RDA applications and NOIs. Other communities just have it as a standard statement for anything being submitted to their office. It's not too complicated. I mean, basically, you just make a decision that, you know, that you want to receive things in PDF format, and you basically just say that and give 2 options. The most common thing is to say either provide a compact disc with the information on it, or to email it.
This would
This would
be
be
voluntary.
to
I mean, I have a problem making this mandatory because there are a lot of small
Yeah.
people that do their own plans and, you know, don't have the technological skill or ability or a large office staff to do stuff like this. I don't have any problem putting it in as one of our requirements that, you know, we would appreciate receiving that way in addition to paper, but
I would just say that professional submissions from engineers should be required. I can't think any of them wouldn't, and I think that's a reasonable requirement, but.
We have
you
the
know,
ability to scan documents, so technically all the people that I've assisted with
Right.
in doing RDA applications and stuff, we have the ability right here to scan.
Yep.
And
Which
we
is
don't,
what
we
you do
don't
for that.
charge for that.
Right.
We do
So we could
charge-
just add a sentence saying,
Yeah.
individual applicants, if they're unable to submit electronically, may bring the documents to the office for.
Well, and the
creation.
intent of this, if the commission so chooses, the intent of this is to move away from paper,
Mhm.
hard copy submissions that have 8 sets, and going back to the statement in the Wetlands Protection Act that only requires 2 paper copies. Some commissions, the commission members have electronic equipment and are comfortable looking at plans electronically as opposed to paper, hard copies. I mean, I have to be honest with you, I guess I'm kind of old school. I really like to kind of look at a paper hard copy because I think there's
Of the
sometimes
plans.
of the plan, yes.
The plans, not of the applications.
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, I'm usually very uncomfortable just reviewing a PDF file on a screen.
Sure.
Because I always
It's
think,
more difficult to scale on a screen than having a full size.
That's
Scaling
actually-
is different.
right.
Yeah.
Plus, you
Well,
can't.
Also,
right on.
sometimes you get,
Well,
sometimes,
You can.
well, like we're gonna look at the Wild Pastures project tonight. So sometimes looking at that, it kind of helps to be able to just to sit back and look at it and kind of get the whole aspect of it. Looking at the PDF, you then definitely, very definitely become limited to just what's drawn on the plan and not making any assumptions or thinking about, well, geez, maybe I should see where this goes. Which, again, you
Instead of
still have to
floating all over the
consult,
place, yeah, to
you
try
still
and-
have to consult sometimes supplemental materials, but I'm just,
So Brent, are you thinking of this instead of the 8 copies or in addition to the 8 copies?
well, it depends. I'm just thinking, I'm thinking actually first off, in the case where some people come in and say, can I see the materials? If you can email it to them, sometimes you can save them coming in.
Yeah.
I have no ability to scan a plan and send that to somebody. Some people, when they are asking to look at an application and stuff, would accept it being sent to them in electronic.
Does that happen
format.
often?
Pardon me?
Does that happen often? Just wondering.
No, it does not
But it
happen
happens.
often at all, but right now it's an option that I can't
Right.
even offer to
Right.
anyone who's interested in it.
Okay.
I can only say, you can either come in or you can they get, an abutters letter tells them with the contact information for the firm that's representing the applicant.
Yeah.
Some people have been disappointed though, when they've called and asked for copies. I've heard horror stories that they get sent the 8.5 by 11, but they don't get sent
The bigger,
the,
the Ps.
the plans or anything, obviously, because the postage and stuff, but if it was available in PDF, they could email them.
Yeah.
It gives you a little better option, but there also are some commissions that have made it,
Mandatory.
well, not mandatory, but they've made it their
Standard
standard operating procedure that they will just look at applications in electronic. There's some people that
Saves
seem to
paper.
think that paper somehow has a bad connotation with it. I would say that paper is one of the most readily recyclable materials.
No, I know Ipswich does that. And
Yes.
They save a really an impressive amount of paper by doing it.
Yeah.
They do. So, it's an achievable goal. But that's why I asked the question. Is this, I think it's a good idea as an addition, is it instead of? In other words,
Well, it
can
could-
John submit everything or everything but plans in the electronic form from now on?
Well,
You would like that.
again, no, because actually the Wetlands Protection Act, the act itself says two copies.
Okay, so you would be proposing 2 copies.
Well, and the
plus
public
electronic.
records law that requires us to make files and applications available actually is predicated on us having hard copies to be able to
Right.
show to people.
Okay, so what you're saying is 2 copies plus electronic copy
Right.
would be it.
But
Otherwise-
again, different commissions
I
have
understand.
adopted different procedures depending upon how their commissioners have wanted to receive the material.
Right.
I mean, I could envision that, depending upon the computer equipment that you folks have at home and your familiarity with operating it, that there might be, a different number of commissioners that said here, well, we'll accept the plans and stuff in electronic format, but there's still 3 of us that want to have hard copies. I'm a firm believer in that whatever's reasonable for you folks to make a good decision. That's why I have not, pressed anything like this. We also don't have the meeting facilities where I'm able to, project. We don't have a screen, we don't have a ceiling mounted LCD. I was going to try and do a projection portion of one of the topics tonight and ran into a problem today. Again, little unexpected computer glitches, so that's why you do not see a cart with a projector on it here right now. I just made some hard copies for you. We'll do it that way. So electronics is not the be all and end all to everything.
Well, you as the agent would have to have the burden of retransmitting those electronic copies.
Right.
To those
And-
commissioners that wanted them, I personally wouldn't, because I can't take them to a bar with me if I'm sitting and having a drink in the afternoon and going through my notes for the meeting or anything like that, or, you know, can't read them in a car. I don't have a portable laptop, and
Yeah.
it's easy to carry around 2 or 3 of these with me.
Well, and I will also tell you, just from my own experience, well, you folks know that I communicate a lot with you via email and stuff, and I will also be the first one to say that it is, I almost consider it, next to passenger pigeons, one of the most unreliable means of communication. Because you don't know. Sometimes it indicates to you that it's sent it, and it really hasn't. Other times, it will send it, but you never know whether it really gets to where it's going. Today, I tried to communicate with a person from Mass Audubon, and I don't think I even got the send button actually clicked all the way down before I immediately got the system administrator message. I ended up having to send the email to my wife and asking her to forward it on, because I knew once it got into Mass Audubon's email system, it couldn't be rejected, and I know I can email my wife.
That's just because it's lousy.
Then as soon as they replied back to me, then I was able to send to them, okay, I had no idea what was going on. But anyway, enough. So anyway, this is just for initial consideration, and yes, we can certainly adopt it as sort of a recommended submittal requirement, in addition to still getting the paper copies.
Well, let's do that for the time being. I'd like to hear from Art and Judy, because if there are 2 people who aren't, I'm not certain, get their email all the time, it would be
Well, Judy
for
definitely
sure.
has.
I'm not, Art just hasn't been around for long enough that I know that he's.
Well, Judy's spoken to me, I don't know
Yeah.
about Art, he does get things by computer, but I don't think, I
Right.
think when he's off working,
Yeah.
I think it's just something he may look at.
So we can take a
maybe.
poll next time we have a full commission and see how many copies we actually need. I mean, I certainly think sometimes the 8 copies is just, more copies than, yeah, particularly the applications. I read them electronically.
Yep.
If I've read it electronically, I never open up the paper copy.
Right,
So that's kind of a waste.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
yeah,
I agree completely.
so we could.
I mean, I can even go with, really depends on, your acreage of your screen, but,
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, the forms are one thing,
Right.
but of course the drawings are another.
plans.
And I agree with you, it is better sometimes to see them full-size in front of you.
Yeah.
But as far as the documentation for the 8.5 by 11s go, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with electronic copies myself.
But I think Judy isn't, and Kurt has already said he's not. So
Right.
we just need to figure out how many we need.
Yeah.
All right,
Are you saying, Doug, that you get this stuff in electronic form now?
not the plans.
Well, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I could. And
I
sometimes.
mean, where do you get the other stuff? I don't get it.
Well, sometimes you get stuff from Brent that's, yeah, it's electronic, right?
Absolutely. Email.
I mean, it's usually.
You don't usually get the applications, I don't
Right.
usually
Right.
I get your
scan.
memos, I get all of
And
them.
only recently have I started asking some of the engineers for them to send me PDF of the plans. Usually it's in response that they've waited till like a day before the meeting, and
Yeah.
then they're like, oh.
But you get
Send
the
me a
applications.
PDF so I can at least look at it,
Better for them because they don't have to get it printed.
Right.
You know.
Saves any.
Saves time at their end.
I don't have a problem with PDF.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
that starts off 8.5 by 11, I'd rather get it in PDF.
Yeah.
From my point of view. Okay. All right, well, John. I think I already know what you think about that discussion, which is if the less paperwork you have to give us, happier you'd be. Who wouldn't?
Or we could make the applicants keep a list of the conservation commissioners and their email addresses and have them send them.
Couple of
directly.
mouse clicks.
Yeah, right, a couple
Well-
of mouse clicks instead of
It's a
a trip
facetious
down to
one.
Raleigh.
Yeah.
sometimes. All right, this is a legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Laws 131, Section 40 is amended, and the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, A public meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 24th, 2015, at 7:45 excuse me, p.m. at Room 5, Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a request for determination of applicability application filed by Bruce Tompkins, the Tompkins Desjardins Trust, for proposed determination of boundary and status of stream as depicted on submitted plan, possibly a regulated wetland resource area at land off Daniels Road, map 9, parcel 23, Rowley. And Mr. DeCoulis is here for the applicant. And we have a memo. John, you've seen this memo?
Yes, yeah.
So you've certainly looked at this stream enough over the years. Various pieces. I think Brent's memo conclusion is the same conclusion we reached sort of a while ago, which is that it appears to be an intermittent stream, as you asserted. Anything you'd like to add?
I did make one addition to the plan that Brent requested.
John came in a couple days ago and visited me prior to my doing the in-depth review that I did today.
And I put a note on here that Brent wanted a boundary set, so I extended the stone wall.
Yep.
And added intersection point A.
So that's item number 1 on the revised sheet here, yeah. Okay.
That was so we knew what portion of this water course was on the property that we're being asked to review. So we had a starting point and the ending point as it flows into the pond. But we do have, just for the commission's and Mr. DeCoulis's edification here, we really do have a problem where we did not receive the checklist, which included the signed permission to enter section.
Oh, I have that.
We also could have a fundamental flaw if you do not have proof of mailing to the DEP.
I have that.
Okay, good.
Check them off.
Now,
Cut out the list.
section of the USGS quadrangle and appropriately sized assessor's map, we know that you can provide those to us, and those are part of our requirements, although they're not as fundamentally significant as the other two that I mentioned here, number 1 and number 4. Obviously, with the snow conditions the way they were, I honestly did not try to enter the property, but I certainly could have, but I was...
I don't think you would have learned a thing.
Well, I was, not anything new, I would believe. I would think that the commission and the applicant's rep know I have a pretty good familiarity with this water course, so, developed over the years, so.
No, I'm sorry, I did not bring that proof of mailing, but I do have it.
Okay.
But I'll
Yeah,
bring it to you shortly.
so we got, on the list of various things,
Right.
we would,
What about, if I could just ask you, John, number 5 in the second set of numbers, are these, at this point, are these proposed lots or approved lots?
They're proposed.
Okay, so you can revise that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that's just putting a note on the plan, so, you know,
Just-
yeah, so everything's.
But I don't know what the status of it is at this point, so.
Right.
And then the legend listing the features, I guess you can add that, yeah. Oh, we can do that, right? Let's see that. and known abutters. So that's pretty straightforward.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and then on the back side there, number 7, we just always like it to state that depicting a jurisdictional resource area on the plan does not establish that it is determined.
I didn't see- I
Well,
didn't-
actually, this just means that if it isn't depicted, it doesn't mean that it isn't there.
The other way.
Yeah.
Well, either way,
Yeah,
equally true.
either way, yeah.
Right. That it only, this is only a determination as to the intermittent status of the water course, even though other things may or may not be shown on this
Yeah,
map,
because you do have the BVW line on there,
for example.
yeah, but you didn't ask us to confirm that, although.
Or, yeah, the
Well,
pond, I
yeah.
mean, for example,
Yeah,
the
the pond,
boundaries of the
yeah.
pond.
Yeah.
So if you can just put a statement to that effect in
Right.
the plan, that's good. All right. So anything anybody else wants to question? And
Now, I'm going to mention one thing, and not that this could possibly be considered slightly a non-standard request, but Mr. DeCoulis and I had quite a conversation, because one of the reasons for this, if the commission may remember when we were considering the order of conditions for Marion Way, Mr. DeCoulis conveyed to us that Mr. Tompkins had expressed concern that there wasn't a statement about the non-existence of riverfront. And where the order of conditions was for the roadway and lots, and actually didn't, the lot boundaries didn't include any of the water course or whatever. The commission's response at that point in time was we didn't require it to be depicted on the plans because we didn't make a determination that there was riverfront, and therefore that's our statement in the process of your NOI to order of conditions. Whereas this determination was specifically filed with us for the commission to issue a determination on the water course. There is the consideration that the water course actually crosses under Daniels Road. In other words, there's a significant amount of the channel that's up gradient and on other properties. Instead of showing the other properties and Mr. DeCoulis and Mr. Tompkins seeking permission from those property owners to include their property in this request, it seemed reasonable that where the Tompkins Desjardins Trust property extends all the way to Daniels Road, and it is known but not depicted that this water course does originate to the east, crosses under Daniels Road, makes its way through the property that right now isn't named. I'm not sure who the owner is. Is it Thibodeau or something like that? Well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. You'll provide that information. But so it is known that there is up gradient water course that could have the implication that if it did have riverfront could possibly extend on part of the Tompkins Desjardins Trust where the frontage is with Daniels Road. So I'm making the suggestion that in the commission's determination, since we're being asked about this portion of the property and the water course that's on the property, that it would not be unreasonable to include, as you can see, I have kind of a compound sentence here, the water course depicted from the southern boundary line and flowing northerly to location 1 at the pond, since I didn't have a revised plan, I had to use those things as a reference point, at the pond is determined to be intermittent. And the depicted property from Daniels Road to the pond does not have any 200-foot riverfront area within it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
I had a discussion with a staff person at DEP's Northeast Regional Office today who at first said, well, why didn't you just have them include the other property owners or whatever? And I said, well, let's think about this. I said, this really isn't as unreasonable a request, and I think it's the commission and the applicant doing due diligence on here. No matter whether you have another abutting property included in your application, if you know, say that there was a BVW area right here, and that it was 50 feet to the east of that side property line, then you would request the applicant to show what portion of the 100-foot buffer zone extended onto their property.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this is the same thing. Logically, yes, we all know that the down gradient stream channel, if one declares it intermittent, there is no logical way that it could be perennial up gradient from where you just made a determination of it being intermittent. So it doesn't seem unreasonable to make the statement that we don't have 200-foot riverfront area on the depicted part of the property that is subject to this determination.
Those properties where they intersect Daniels Road down there somewhere have already come before the Conservation Commission in the past, and it may well have been before the river zone was passed. I don't remember the specific, you mentioned Thibodeau, but there's a house that was built down there and all that
Yeah.
came before us, and I don't remember what the determination was as to the riverfront, but as to the intermittency or not of the river. But I don't think it was intermittent at that point, but it becomes intermittent down there somewhere.
Well, actually, so
I don't have any problem with what you said.
right. Well, and you shouldn't, because that technically is the on-the-ground situation. But where this concern comes from is within the Wetlands Protection Act and the regulations. It talks about using the U.S. Geological Survey quadrangle. And if the stream that is shown on that plan is shown as a dark blue line, it is presumed to be perennial.
Right.
And it turns out, this water course, as it is depicted past the electric substation on the other side of Daniels Road, is depicted as dark blue and then changes to light blue as it goes further on up into Ricker's Field, isn't it, I think?
Beyond, even beyond.
Well,
Yeah,
anyway, it does,
Right.
it is shown as light blue and then transitions to dark blue somewhere around the electric substation, I
right, yeah,
think.
right,
And so dark blue is presumed to be perennial
perennial, yeah.
unless, as has been submitted to us, you can demonstrate that within four different days throughout an annual period that the stream bed is dry. And again, we've had enough experience that it's dry. And so one of the reasons why this concern comes into play is because there was a filing on the other side of Daniels Road with us where Riverfront didn't have any regulatory bearing, but the applicant and the applicant's wetlands consultant chose to depict riverfront on the property, going by the presumption that since the USGS showed it as a dark line, that it was a perennial stream. And so you actually could develop some confusion if you followed our record of filings up from this. This was prior to my coming to work for you folks. And I think it just turned out that that project, Riverfront, didn't really come into play in terms of restricting or not restricting what activities were proposed, so I don't think it was ever scrutinized as to whether it really was a perennial stream or not. But there is a filing, if you look in the public record, that says that there is riverfront further on up on this property. But the reality is that it really isn't, because that water course does have periods where it's dry and doesn't have any flow.
Well, which is why you want to say that in this.
Yes.
To make that clear.
Yes, to
That makes sense
to
to me.
provide clarity, as long as the commission is comfortable, and I wanted to explain to you that, the reasoning behind it.
Yep, makes sense. Anybody have any questions?
That's fine.
Okay. Anything you want to add, John?
No, no.
Let's see, this would be a positive determination option 2A?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep, that's for determination of a resource area.
determination of resource area, okay. So I need a motion to close the hearing and issue a positive determination option 2A, stating the language that Brent has already read, although you're going to revise that language to refer to the location.
Right, yeah.
As it's
Well,
actually
and,
depicted
yeah,
on the
I'm
plan.
actually gonna wait for him to do all the revisions to the plan, and
What,
then,
what did you call that spot up there?
I think you said point A.
Point A.
Oh, yeah,
Intersection of
intersection
point A.
point A, yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion
So move.
in a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? The motion carries. And it's an intermittent stream from now and forever.
Well, this is all
I suppose.
Well-
contingent upon you submitting
Exactly.
all the
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, and don't forget the, particularly the DEP
Right, the proof of mailing.
That would be fatal.
Intermittent stream up to the pond.
From the pond up to
A.
the boundary line with the southern boundary, intersection point A.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Pond
thank you, John.
north, that I believe is considered. Oh,
Yes. Down to the, yes.
that make the pond intermittent or? It's a channel. Coast to coast.
Only if someone can demonstrate that it has linear flow. Didn't get it done until like 6:45, so I didn't think emailing it to you was on the doing.
I used to work with the guy that worked for USGS, and he worked in North Dakota. And we were outside, and I said, it's pretty cold out. And he was like,
Yeah, well, I heard the part about cat.
That's doing the job all right.
It's incentive to do something that
oh,
I don't believe we are going to have anyone from 56 Newburyport Turnpike in attendance tonight.
Yeah.
We may just want to discuss where that stands, whereas
Well, where do they stand? That is next on the agenda. This is the 8 o'clock item, 56 Newburyport Turnpike, a continued notice of intent, Mark Savory. So where does that stand with planning?
the planner doesn't work on Tuesdays, so he didn't give me any indication or heads up yesterday that he'd received anything from Larry Graham. But in all honesty, I was busy with multiple things and I didn't specifically go in and ask him directly that question. I gave you copies. I've had a little back and forth with Miss Liz Dupree of Clearwater
Yeah.
Environmental. I was waiting for her return phone call today, but she did say she was going to be tied up in the afternoon. I guess she didn't have an opportunity to really communicate with me. So I'm left in the well, I don't know. I'm left in whatever position you choose to tell me I'm in, because I really can't act as the applicant's representative or whatever. And one of the last communications of the applicant's representative with me was whether I thought, you know, the commission was going to continue this, or whether I thought, you know, it could be closed or whatever. And obviously, I also can't make that decision for the commission either. I think you can see in reading the discourse in the memos that we really only need a few plan revisions in terms of what we're looking for. We honestly don't know if H.L. Graham Associates has been entirely satisfied with the project and the revisions that the applicant's consultants have made and submitted to the planning board. So there is the option to possibly vote to issue contingent upon if Graham's, H.L. Graham Associates review identifies anything that the applicant appropriately revised their plans to respond to it. I think in the context, well, I guess it's how you feel, in the context of work in the buffer zone and the commission's responsibility for protecting the 8 interests of the act.
So is it your sense that Liz Dupree is just reluctant to revise the plans yet again? Reading her, I guess this is from today, this morning.
Yeah.
Could it be conditioned in the OOC instead of, in lieu of yet another of prints? And then your response is, well, we kind of like to have it on the plans because that's what the contractor looks at.
Well, and they actually hadn't provided any
Right.
revised, well, they hadn't provided any final revised hard copies that were wet stamped, signed, and dated, as I didn't expect they would be until they get
Graham.
Graham's full sign-off.
Correct.
So I'm, yeah, and so later on, when she left me a voicemail, it sounded like what she really meant was that she couldn't get any revised plans to our meeting tonight from their engineer, Mr. Ryder. So again, the commission has closed and voted to issue before where there's been, you know, just the need for plan revisions that aren't considered overly complicated.
Oh, we just did.
Yeah, yeah.
We do it all the time, yeah.
And, you know, so that's why I think one of my emails said to her that if you're comfortable with the understanding that if Mr. Graham of H.L. Graham's review identifies something that needs to be revised, that the commission will want to see that appropriately revised on the plans.
Right.
So
That seems okay to me. I don't.
if there is a surprise, which
In Graham's review, you
in Graham's review, which, again, this isn't his first interaction with them, so I don't know how that would occur, but just speculating, because my crystal ball isn't that good either. I mean, technically, if there was something new and substantive, the commission could reopen.
Right, I think your sentence here kind of summarizes my positions. As long as it's understood that the RCC requires and will include Graham's review comments in order to consider the project review complete, it seems the above erosion control item is all that needs resolution, and it is kind of minor. I think I agree. Is everyone else comfortable with that? Because I think the last time we were here, they were here, we discussed the possibility of approving it tonight without them being in attendance
Right.
Yes.
necessarily. And I think the only impediments to that are pretty minor,
Right.
so I'm okay.
But I think the commission will also agree with me that we run into this with various applicants sometimes. They think that the commission's only purview of erosion control is within its jurisdictional areas, the 100-foot buffer zone, et cetera. And that isn't true in Raleigh anymore.
Right.
And it's actually not true when you take into account stormwater considerations, because the commission can actually consider the impact of stormwater in upland areas that then flows and may have a negative impact on down gradient buffer zone and wetland resource areas. So the commission isn't, or doesn't encounter the wall of China at the edge of the 100-foot buffer zone. They do have the capability of making a legitimate request for appropriate construction site management. And our stormwater erosion control bylaw actually gives us full authority to make sure that there's always appropriate erosion control implemented on the site. So, not to mention, I mean, it's an ounce of erosion control is worth a pound of cleanup any day.
It's just common sense.
Just a question, Brian, I mean, is this the latest plan received March 16th? Is this the one I was looking at yesterday?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yeah.
And at
They
the last meeting, we discussed some detail changes
Yes.
that,
Which did not make it
which did not change.
into these plans. And so they did send me a PDF, which I was reviewing. They sent it to me yesterday, where they corrected the extent of the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay.
They explained, they had, on the computer, they had different colors for the symbology, so actually the erosion control, which I'm not sure was there, did now show up and was around the project work. The only place it's missing, which was the reason for my commentary, they're going to abandon this existing gravel driveway that's over on, let's see, yeah, they also put the north arrow on here that I noticed was missing. Anyway, over on this side of the site, this is going to be their main access way. So they're abandoning this, and then this is becoming loam and seeded, but just down to where the gravel edge of the drive goes onto the paved parking area. This is paved parking area. And so what I was asking for was, since they said proposed loam 3 inches and seed, I wanted to see some erosion control put in place there, or at least a note that said it was going to be put there once they did the loaming, because it's going to be a slope.
Okay, so that would keep the loam.
That would be, keep
Off
the loam
the
in place
roadway.
until, you're right.
Okay.
And because that roadway then goes down and goes right down onto Route 1.
Ms. Turtle says to me.
Yeah.
Now, that's fine in the proposed plan. What disturbed me a little bit is in the details, we asked for 2 things. One of them was to reverse the erosion control detail.
They did do that also, in the PDF that came to me, not on this plan.
Okay.
Not on this plan.
And the indication of the depth of the groundwater beneath the infiltration chambers.
Okay, I gotta check into that.
I didn't see
I'll have
that.
to check and see if that
Okay.
made it to the PDF.
Didn't you mention that at the last meeting?
Right, he did.
There were 2 items that we talked about on detail changes, and those were the 2. About the detail for the hay bales and the silt fence, and the depth of the groundwater beneath the infiltration chambers.
For whatever reason, the communication process seems to be like volleying in tennis here. It seems that we have to throw the ball back over the net twice. I don't know why. But
Well, we have 2 boards, and we have an engineer and an environmental consultant, Liz, and her engineers. So there's, and she's got a customer, and then there's Larry
Right.
Graham. So there's actually quite a few people
Right.
there or in the water here, and maybe that accounts for some of it.
Could be.
I'm comfortable having it left in the hands of approving.
Yeah,
this.
but do check on what Bob just mentioned. I'd forgotten that, those 2 points. That we did have specific, I remember the environmental one, I mean, the erosion control
Erosion control detail.
detail, but I forgot about the other one. Okay, so,
Well, if you just check the PDF, perhaps it's there.
yeah, and if it's not, then it needs to be there.
But again, since we already did mention it, that's not quote-unquote new information.
No, no,
It's
no.
just now coming into the process at this meeting.
No, we
Where they
not
don't
only
have to
mentioned
be
it, they
in
agreed to
attendance.
it.
I
They-
will,
They said that it would be there. So if it's not there, it only means they forgot, I should
Right.
think.
Yeah,
No, it needs to be there.
doesn't mean you should hold up the determination.
All right, so based on that, I think we could, if everyone's in general consent to this, we could close the meeting and, geez, what are we here? We're go back to, tell me what's the motion I need?
yeah, the motion would be to issue an order of conditions
For an order of conditions, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
For this commercial project with standard commercial conditions as well as the special conditions that have developed in the review process, as well as, I think we should allow a provision just to protect everything for a 30-day period. I think we should specifically allow an extension, because I don't know where Graham Associates is in getting.
Right, okay.
And I don't want us to arbitrarily do our 14-day thing
And then not
and
have
then
Graham.
catch them by the fact that the process with the planning board hasn't
Yep.
reached a
Sure.
conclusion.
So let's do 30 days and then we'll have another meeting before that expires. So if it's still an open issue, we
Exactly,
can
so
talk
if we
about it.
need to somehow reopen it and address something, we
Okay.
have the
That makes
provision
sense.
to do that.
And also subject,
The normal requirements of subject to review and approval in the
Right.
Office of Revised Plans and any other information that comes out of the planning board review process.
right. So do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? The motion carries. Okay.
Oops, sorry.
Okay.
You ready? This is the 815 item, a new request for a complete certificate of compliance 63-471 for 262 and 272 Weathersfield Street, map 23, parcels 19, 19A, 19B, 23, 38, and 39, Christine and James Georgialakis of Wild Pasture Estates. It must feel good to be here, huh?
Absolutely.
10 years in the making.
Has it really been 10 years?
It has
Yeah,
been.
I was trying to think.
2005.
All lots sold and developed?
Yes.
Congratulations.
I can't really remember a time I was on the commission when this wasn't in front of us.
Sure.
So That's great.
But there is a memo, and there
Yes,
are a
there's a
few
memo.
things.
There are a few details. Have you seen the memo?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Would you like to present or
Sure.
speak for itself? Do you have anything you want to add to the memo?
Alan Roscoe from Camet Engineering. Yes, we've submitted this request for a certificate of compliance. Camet Engineering has had several years to monitor the progress
Right.
of the construction, and we prepared these as-built drawings,
Yep.
compared them with the design, looked at the stormwater basins and made sure that the storage volumes are correct and the outlet controls are correct. And I know that most recently past December or November, Mr. Bracelack and I went out and fine-tuned some of the trails, and there's a couple of punch list items that will be done for trail signage and markings and the like, but by and large, we think it's substantially complete. And being presented with this memo tonight, I don't see any real major issues with providing some shading on the areas that have been asked for. I guess I would ask for item number 5, it looks like you want some sort of a trail map coupled with an overall extent of
Well,
wetlands.
there were sheets provided in here, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to remember which out of the 37 sheets are the ones that
I
I
think
should
it was
stick my
on
fingers
I'm
in.
Laura Tolero from Regnanti Stereo and Osborne, legal counsel to Wild Pasture Estates. I think it was on the CR that showed the trail. I have a tiny
Well, they
copy.
were indicated on the plans,
Is it on
too.
those
Yes,
two?
'cause
Yeah, well, it's right here.
Mr. Roscoe will attest to the fact
On the
that
cover
we
sheet.
consulted that when we were
Yeah.
out in the field. So I think that 2 things would be accomplished by just taking whichever of the sheets have the trails on them in the largest depiction of the plan. That will also, I think, accomplish giving us a much larger depiction, which is what we lack right now, of the wetland resource areas that were delineated, and therefore, also by extension, give us the best depiction of the restricted 25-foot no cut, no disturb to its fullest extent that is also on the property, because that is an area that has a perpetual restriction on it, and the commission does like to have the as-built or completed plans of the project clearly show all of the permanently restricted areas so that we can use that
It's a big
as the
picture.
record
Yeah.
and for purposes of informing people in the future who may run afoul of the permanent restriction. Not that we think that that's gonna happen. But usually if you have a clear depiction of as much as you possibly can, you then have a shorter period of discussion and education with people later on in the future.
Especially when you display it like that all the time. But I guess the question is on the trail layout. Is it simple enough that we just use a highlighter and based upon best guess? Because we both know that when we were setting out the trails,
Right.
we picked the path of least resistance, and if there was an obvious way to minimize clearing, we kind of meandered and
Right.
just make our
But
best
again,
interpretation.
as has been
or-
pointed out, most of that should be following what was already
Yes.
depicted on here.
I was just worried that you might expect
Well-
surveyed accuracy.
Dimensions,
No,
right?
No.
Okay.
No, so
No.
I'm gonna, you heard us talking earlier here, I'm gonna propose that you send me the PDFs of whatever 3 or 4 sheets you choose that have the biggest, best overview
Okay.
of the project, incorporating, my recommendations for some of the shading, et cetera, for the depiction. Send me those PDFs so I can review them prior to you committing them to two sets of hard copy wet stamp plans, which would also include those. I mean, they may be in addition to these, or you may just want to revise a whole set and give us a whole complete set for our records.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
gonna leave that up to your estimation, Mr. Because it's gonna be your permanent record.
But to answer your question, no, you're not expected to survey them because I don't think you could, from my understanding. I wasn't there most recently, but.
Well, we
You
never,
just-
we never had an expectation of that, which is one of the reasons why we want to do the trail marking out there, so that,
Which is what I was just gonna say, as I read your memo, that's still to be done.
yes.
Because you can't do it now. And
Well,
then-
actually, I could do it now, but I wanted to do it at the same time they do the posts, so we could kind of just
Right. That's
have
what-
that be the final
Well, no,
inspection.
that's what I mean
and-
is, you can't put them on the post till the posts are down.
yeah. Well, that's true, the few posts,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, to that extent, it seems like the actual location of the trails is still somewhat to be determined. It's gonna be where the posts go, right?
No, we know exactly where they need to go.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that we already worked out. That's-
Okay. All right.
Hasn't there been at least one neighbor in recent years complaining about people using the trails and trying to steer them into the front?
Do you want me to go for this one?
I think so.
Yeah, well, okay, what the situation was, we had a newly moved-in resident out there who apparently viewed someone who walked through the woods in the pursuit of hunting, who was carrying a firearm and wandered through the back, possibly through either conservation land connected to the West Ox pasture development, or came from Route 1 or from Weathersfield Street. There's two sections of both of those roadways that just have woods that you can just walk through, uncleared, undisturbed woods, and come out in the back of the properties on Wild Pasture Lane. So this person became concerned, causing them to inappropriately post no trespassing signs, a fairly random dispersal through the woods. I was still pulling them out in January, where Mr. Georgialakis and I touched base, and we chose a very appropriate wildlife study sign, which has been installed out there at the appropriate locations where one coming from other abutting woods would see them prior to getting anywhere near the back of those residences. So that being said, I did receive a phone call and have never received a phone call since now that we've done that signage. So I'm hoping that solved the problem.
I have another totally unrelated question, and it may not be appropriate, but in this context, but there, when all this was originally proposed, it was supposed to be a cut through to the southernmost property. Where does that stand?
On the actual roadway system itself, that's built and it's not officially open. The town accepts the road. There's 2 Jersey barriers that will be removed, and that access will be open to the public.
Connects to
Arthur Gordon.
Spencer,
Yeah.
Arthur Gordon.
Yeah, the
One of those
construction is
two.
all
So
complete.
this part was done
Yeah.
with Wild Pasture and has been accepted by the road almost 10 years ago. And this is built, but the Jersey barriers are here, and they'll be removed when the town gets the deed for this.
Is that on the upcoming town meeting warrant?
Yes, the select
Yeah, it was
voted
just voted last night.
to put it on the warrant.
Okay. So good. That's a good answer.
Time was everything.
Checking off all the little boxes here. All right. I assume otherwise the memo doesn't raise any concerns with you. The ongoing perpetual conditions of the ordinary ones. What else? 14 days to revise the plans. Does that work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Seems pretty minor. Anything else anybody wants to add? Okay, good. So then I would need a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance with the listed ongoing conditions, conditioned upon review and approval of the plan revisions as discussed.
So
Within
moved.
15 days. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Kurt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And all against? And you're done.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good.
Champagne.
Thank you.
The champagne.
supposed to have folders, or?
Yes,
Oh, okay, so I'm sure. They bought the
that's the Wild Pastures folders.
10 years worth.
Well, and they were diligent about moving it forward. They just ran into a negative market for it, so everything slowed down. But it was not them, at least that's from my impression. They were very attentive to everything. they were
Correct.
supposed to do.
Actually, even during the quote-unquote bottom of the real estate market, there was 1 to 2 homes built annually in that project.
I'm sure it took longer than they hoped, but they never lost momentum on it at all.
No, and probably the best indication of the return of the real estate market was the fact that the 5 or 6 lots that were left went within the space of, I think, like 6 months.
Yeah, I was gonna say a year, but yeah, much faster when it picked up.
Kept them out of a higher tax bracket some years. Looks like they'd all sold within 2 years.
Sure. Depending on the sale.
Pardon?
Depending on how the sale worked.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is discussion of town tax title taking properties.
Okay, here we go.
This was, just for background for the members and for the audience, this was a request from the treasurer that the Conservation Commission and/or agent review tax-taking parcels with respect to whether there were any natural resource protection or open space considerations that might be involved before, I think the plan is for the town to put them on the market and to consider whether the town might want to retain any of them instead for those reasons. So Brent has done that.
Right.
And is ready to share.
So, well, yeah.
Thinking with us. He is
This
already
is what I'd
told me.
hoped to actually do a projection thing, but
Yeah, right.
anyway, so if you don't mind just sharing 2 copies, so.
Yep.
I figured the best way would to be to go through, in some cases, some properties are grouped together, but in most cases, it's individual lots. And I thought the best thing to do would be to show you the pictometry with the property marked in it. So yeah, we're asked to comment on, to the selectmen, the request from Karen Summit, town treasurer, collector, in regards to the potential to be sold as a way to raise revenues for the town. And then she goes on to say, do you have any knowledge or information on the property above that may assist us in making a determination on the disposition? I reviewed these properties with kind of the following criteria. If they were adjacent to a previously preserved or conserved property, if they not specifically whether they just had wetland resource areas on them, but if they were containing or possibly had a boundary that was a stream corridor that then would provide either continuity or connectivity to other conserved or preserved properties nearby.
Downstream, you mean?
Or upstream.
Yeah, well, actually, we'll see it later on. So most of these, you'll find that they're isolated.
None of the above.
I wasn't looking at any quote-unquote development potential. I wasn't reviewing this for any zoning considerations. I really was mainly just focusing on whether it might possibly be worthwhile for us to say, please, would you consider designating under the custody and care of the Conservation Commission for conserved open space or natural resource protection. So this is called the Gordon parcel off of Main Street. It's way behind an area that some people might call associated with the junkyard on Main Street. And you'll see in the lower right-hand corner that we do have town conservation land, but it is no way anywhere near this parcel, nor are there any waterways or watercourses that go over there near the parcel in question, which is 31-14.
Is this Main Street?
Yes.
Or is
That's
this
the brothers' property that we recently dealt with, that the commission had actually bought,
This one, yeah,
marked in red down here.
this is the railroad, right?
Yep, that's the railroad corridor and,
That's Savers.
yes,
It's landlocked.
yes. So that, unless the commission tells me otherwise, I'm going to indicate that the commission has no interest, and we actually don't have any information to offer in regards to it either.
How large is that parcel? It looks tiny right here.
I'm sorry, I didn't develop that information.
It's okay.
It's not, I would say it's not tiny.
Half an acre?
Maybe somewhere, it actually may be between 4 and 6 acres.
Oh, that big.
Yeah,
To try to raise some money.
that's pretty distant.
If he wants it, he'll pay for it. It's scale.
True. So that's,
191 feet.
Yep.
so that's the first parcel.
How many are there on all here? I think there were
14, I think. But we may actually,
Don't spend too long on the Carmi ones.
We'll move on to number two.
Moving on.
so this is the Hicken parcel at 9 Prospect
Yeah.
Street, which is map 15, parcel 79. It does have a wetland stream system. We actually were familiar with the property that's right to the right of it, 1580, that was repossessed and.
Right at the corner.
Gas stations over here?
Gas sta-
This is the gas station.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And the flea market's here.
Oh, yes.
This is the
This
restaurant.
upside. Yep.
This is a vacant lot that's kind of behind the Pancake House, basically.
Right, this is the
Yeah.
pancake house.
And except for the fact that there's an intermittent stream that goes through there and wetland system at the rear of the property, it's not adjacent to any previously conserved land, nor does it significantly protect that stream corridor. So
And perhaps the treasurer could sell it.
I'm
Who knows?
indicating no interest in that particular parcel.
What's the road frontage on Prospect Street? Keep it.
So the next parcel is actually going to lead to a discussion about 2 parcels. Along Weathersfield Street, this is identified as being 351 Weathersfield Street, that previously was held by a company called Mortgage Acquisition Trust. And the town has been slowly taking over. This Mortgage Acquisition Trust had multiple parcels, a lot of them with frontage on Weathersfield Street. Some of them have frontage on Newburyport Turnpike, all in this same general area. This particular parcel, I actually am going to make a recommendation to the commission that we seek to have this kept under ownership of the town and possibly designated under the custody and care of the Conservation Commission. Because right adjacent to it is parcel 19-8-14, which is 355 Weathersfield Street. That is also listed with this Mortgage Acquisition Trust, and the town is in land court seeking to possess this property for the non-payment of taxes. Batch Elder Stream, you see the joint property lines there that seem to kind of serpentine? That's a clear indication that more than likely that property boundary is actually Batch Elder Brook. And you'll see in looking at the sheet that has 355 Weathersfield Street at the top as a title, you can see the green shaded parcel 19-1B, which is conservation land. along the Mill River corridor. This is where Batchelder Brook goes and makes its way and joins with the Mill River. It's all wetlands, it's all stream corridor, it's all floodplain. The development potential of these two properties is basically nil. And in fact, when I first came to work for the commission, 351 Weathersfield Street was the subject of a court suit, and I was invited to go down to Cambridge District Court and sit in on a trial as keeper of the records while two people, one who was royally upset that the other person had sold this to him as a buildable lot, because it only has a little bit of buffer zone along the frontage of Weathersfield Street. The rest of it's all
There's actually a
freshwater
cellar
emergence.
hole right there where there was a building or a home years and years and years ago.
Yeah, which is mostly in water all the time.
But the reason nobody lives in that house anymore.
So, if the commission concurs, my recommendation is to the request that the town not sell this parcel and this adjoining parcel of 355 Weathersfield Street, that if in fact the town does take them, that they be converted into conserved open space and designated under the custody and care of the Conservation Commission.
Which one's 355? This one?
Yeah, 355 is 8-14. 19 to 8-14, and 351 is 8-15.
All right, well, my neighbor across the street, the Hills,
Mhm.
which I think that is their property, bought this property, which goes on both sides of Batchelder Brook, I believe.
Yeah,
But I have,
you're referring to 19 8-13?
yeah,
Yeah.
and did it as protection for his own property.
Right, right. Like I said, if everybody concurs, I think our recommendation would be
Makes
to
sense to me?
So going on to a property that's identified as a McHugh parcel. Not quite exactly sure why. To try and give you some orientation on this property, it is south of Forest Ridge. And that purple line is the Ipswich-Rowley border. It is,
No.
Oh, yeah, got it.
I'm
You
sorry,
mean this
well,
line? This one?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that
sorry,
line.
yeah, the colors don't show up.
The straight line.
The straight
Oh, yeah.
line that
That's the
forms
school.
one boundary.
What's
That's
cool?
the
Clark School
Clark
now.
School.
Oh,
So those-
John Coughlin's building at Forest Ridge.
Yeah.
This is, that is, yeah. This is Forest Ridge.
So
All right, belong to
this particular piece of property, although it does seem to have a small corner that's adjacent to a stream corridor, the rest of the property is not adjacent or abutting to any previously conserved property. It does abut Coughlin's Gateway 2 Realty Trust that is under a conservation restriction. But I also have a feeling that, well, one of the reasons why I wouldn't recommend that we make an affirmative statement requesting this be protected and conserved is that there's no way to access it. There'd be no public access. It's not adjacent to any other town property. And although it is adjacent to Mr. Coughlin's property, that already has a conservation restriction on it. So the reality is that this parcel would probably never have anything occur to it anyway, even if it was in private ownership.
Which is how the town ended up owning it, of course.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, there may
What's
be.
across the
there may-
town boundary in Ipswich? Anything?
I do not know. Unfortunately,
Well, it's
only
that-
with the pictometry can I even see anything over there. The MyMap program just stops right at all municipal boundaries. I can't see a thing.
Let's get into that.
I can't even tell you whether there's multiple
No,
lots
Right,
over
golf
there.
golf
The golf course is way over
Big
here.
lot,
Tractor
yeah.
Supply is way down there.
Yeah.
That's the Hudson.
That's that funny commercial building.
That's-
It's a commercial
this
building.
is
I
a
can't
commercial
remember
building
what it
that's
is,
in the
though.
middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
the
DFI
house.
excavators or something like
Yeah,
that?
so Tractor Supply might, it's still
Yeah, I wonder where the stream.
No, it's
corridor goes.
Tractor Supply's quite a bit further.
Here,
Yeah.
They're down by, across from the Chinese restaurant,
right.
almost at Einberg.
There's a pair of houses, duplexes that are somewhere between here and.
There are.
Oh, yeah.
This might be,
That's nothing.
Yeah.
what do they call
Well,
it?
right
DEI
up-
excavators
right
or
up.
something, it's a brown commercial building. I drive past it twice a day, you know, for the.
So,
No idea where it is.
so again, if the commission concurs, I'm going to
Makes
express no interest or information in that parcel. And the next parcel was previously
My neighborhood.
owned by Millbrook Crossing off of
This is my house.
Hillside Street, yeah.
Yep.
And it's got some ledge on it, I think, if I remember correctly.
Goes like this,
Yeah,
And
it would be steep there.
very steep. They blasted
Your
it out.
driveway is steep.
They
Yeah.
blasted it out there to build this section of the road.
Which one's your house, Doug?
This one up in the right, upper right corner, 20-3-15.
okay. I gotcha. This is not adjacent to any previously conserved property, nor does it have any waterways or watercourses, or nor does I think it have any wetlands either, since I think it's dry.
Definitely has no wetlands, vouch for that.
So I'm going to indicate no interest unless anyone has
There's a
a
little
contrary opinion.
fence right there, which they put up to keep kids from falling down the cliff.
The neighbor.
I just think beekeepers.
Is that big enough for a house?
The beekeeper,
They would
That's
no,
as
it's not.
where the beekeeper is?
Yeah.
It's like from this edge to this edge, it's about 25 feet.
We want to return to Kirk Turner's neighborhood here, to Weathersfield Street. This is another mortgage acquisition parcel that's listed as being 336 Weathersfield Street. Probably familiar with it because it has the farm pond on it, which you can see indicated as a dark, funny area that could possibly be the outline of a shrimp or something. Next to
Cooked
Weathersfield
shrimp.
Street. Now, this does have there's the possibility this has some portion of that stream that went through the former Sandy Patrickin's property there where they did the driveway.
Is that what this is, the driveway?
Works
Which
its
is-
way down here, then just
No, it's not Patrick's driveway.
That's,
to the left side of the street is actually Mr. Graham's driveway that
Oh,
used to
that's the
serve.
driveway next to you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
on the other, yeah, between,
Mhm.
Batchelder's Brook is actually between
With
there.
the friendly sign.
Yes.
Yes.
There is that brook does continue and feed into Batchelor's right down here.
Yeah.
Bridge?
And
Yeah.
there's
Well, and the
also-
farm pond
there's
even
also
has an
different
outlet
farm
too.
pond.
See, the farm
Through
pond
there,
has an
yes.
outlet.
Yeah, that feeds
It
into
It
the
goes
house
that way,
visitor.
and somewhere in here is that stream.
There's a
Comes
sign
down.
to that effect.
Yeah, very unambiguous sign.
But this property again is not, well, it depends on how, it's not really contiguous, but if we ask for those two properties across the street, then it would be across the street from 351 and 355 Weathersfield Street. I tried to mark them in green.
Yeah.
I don't know if it showed up in the copies here. But here again, the problem would be that it's not really contiguous to anything, and
Right.
it doesn't contain enough of any one resource area to actually firmly protect it. But it also has enough regulated wetland resource area on it that I'm not sure it could be quote-unquote developed in any manner, but that's obviously speculation because I have no definitive information about the lot.
I think you could get a house on there if you, I don't know what's the road frontage, you have any idea?
Well, actually, the reason all of these lots
126?
were left and taken over by the town was that they could not perk them. All of this field is underlain by clay and has no ability to
126, so it's probably laid out with that in mind. Is it 125 in that area? I'm pretty sure it is. But they couldn't perk it then, but that doesn't mean that with modern techniques, they couldn't figure out something.
Well, something continuously feeds water into this pond.
I think it's
And I
spring.
think there's some kind of tile or something, because there's a pipe that comes from
Yes.
these other fields that the horse,
Comes in here,
uh,
up here.
what is it, Alexander's or whatever, on the
Right.
other side of the property bought?
Yes, she bought those.
She bought those
two
where
lots
they've been
for
mowed. and-
paddock.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a
So
snapping
I-
turtle that lives in that pond, it's about half the size of this table.
Oh, what, a snapping turtle?
Yes, yeah.
You wouldn't be surprised.
Comes out every spring and tries to lay eggs and cross the street.
So I wasn't gonna indicate any conservation interest, but, you know, if you folks, you know, feel that it would be an isolated parcel.
Yeah. Well, that's the closest one to a close call, I think.
Well, it- If that's a vernal pool, which it
Boy,
probably
with a
is,
snapping turtle in it, though, I doubt very much it's gonna be a
Yeah.
vernal pool,
Yeah, ain't
to
much
be quite
doing
honest
that.
with you. Or let's put it this way, I doubt breeding would be successful. How's that?
They try. I don't know, does that pool ever dry out?
I've never seen it dry.
Yeah. You were saying that there's some source of water that feeds it.
Yeah, there's like a pipe that appears to come in from those adjoining fields
Yeah.
that the horse
It's an inlet and an outlet pipe.
stable.
Okay. And there may be springs underneath.
That's why that pond was put there.
And if the
Just
soils
this
are all
size.
clay, then it's just.
Yeah,
it's
but
just
I
gonna
think the
stay
whole
there.
place suffers from a perch
It's like a
water
bathtub.
table. Yeah, yeah.
You get all this wetland here, if there is some sort of activity.
How was it we came across the perk test for that particular parcel? Was it because of the
Well, we
neighboring
really,
one?
well, we really don't, but
Oh.
I just know, because the Board of Health told me that various people had tried over the years, as well as when, now the town has the corner lots up by the intersection of Weathersfield Street and Newburyport Turnpike, and we did an investigation for the possible siting of the fire station there,
Right.
and found extensive wetlands coming up very near the road, but also found high groundwater table. I don't know if they actually did get one place to perk there or not. I don't know that they did.
Well, it's possible they could truck in a whole lot of soil. Bring the elevation up.
These, as far as I know, these parcels before had just been used for the raising of container nursery stock. A portion of them anyway. They stopped them.
Not containerized,
Was it
to my knowledge.
containerized?
No, they were planted.
They
They're
just
planted,
dig in the ground, okay.
they're field planted. And they only did it one cycle of nursery stock.
Alright. So even
I'm not
that
gonna-
wasn't successful
Well, that's,
for other
I'm
reasons.
not going to.
Okay. That's fine.
That used to be part of the Apple.
Well, I think I agree with you, Brent. It seems of marginal
Right.
environmental significance.
Yeah, I'd rather make an effort to get the parcels across the street that actually
Yeah.
protect the Batchelder Brook corridor and floodplain. Than,
And I don't want to say yes to something that even arguably might have some economic value.
Well, exactly, or
Point of
or
this
if an
exercise
abutter,
is to
and if
sell
an
it.
abutter might just wanna have it, just
Right.
for.
This guy might wanna
Or-
buy it.
Or this guy,
Well, that
who
guy.
already bought this, might feel like, you know, it'd be worse to have the one next to it.
Yep.
It'd be nice for her, stable lady,
Yep. Maybe.
to acquire that water source.
So the next parcel had been owned by Brook Street Realty at 7 Brook Street. We actually know a little bit about this parcel.
Is this Farnham? Is that how
George.
Brook-
Yeah,
This is George.
Brook
Oh.
Brook
This is
Street,
Farnham Way?
Farnham,
Yeah.
Georgetown.
Yep.
The,
If you go all
the
the way
residence
over,
at
you go to
11-46, which you notice
it's
has
over
that
there.
nice green area of lawn, because that's their new replaced septic system, which we had a permit for.
This way.
Yeah.
This is Weldon Farm Road if you That way, about a quarter mile, you come to the end of Brook Street.
Now, the unfortunate thing is that this lot isn't adjacent to anything else, but also it does have a wetland system through there, and water does flow and then go underneath Brook Street heading towards Georgetown. So I'm not sure if there's quote-unquote any development potential, but folks on the corner lot there, 11-45-A, might wish to acquire it, since there's the possibility they may already be sort of stretching their boundary line anyway, according to the aerial photo.
I know those people pretty well, and they kind of do, but I'm pretty sure they're not gonna wanna buy it,
Anyway,
unfortunately.
I don't believe that it has any conservation interest.
No, I'm familiar with it because I've been to the house several times, and I would say I agree with that.
Okay.
Small?
What is this street?
Farming.
Here's an interesting one.
It's a
75 Railroad Avenue.
75.
KMAM Realty.
Beach farm.
It has a dilapidated, decaying house
That's
on
what
it,
actually-
Yeah,
right next to the railroad tracks.
Yes.
Do not let the green color where
yeah.
I wrote railroad fool you. That apparently may be an error on the MyMap program. That is not conserved
That's-
municipal
that's-
property. That is railway corridor, because the commuter rail station is right on the other side of, to the north.
Which piece of property are we looking at?
We're looking at this one right here.
Oh,
This-
that one.
This
Oh,
little,
yeah.
little frontage
Yeah, what's
right
next?
there has a decaying wood frame house
Sure.
on it, and then the rest of it's all salt marsh.
Boy, isn't it?
And it probably has absolutely no place to put any type of functioning septic system, which is why the house is decaying, because
Railroad didn't help it.
So where you've written railroad is the railroad right away.
Yeah.
yeah, it's not really green conserved property or municipal property.
Train
It
tracks.
should be just white for the railroad corridor.
Yeah.
What's this up here? That's the railroad
That, no, that's the
That's
Raleigh
the-
Housing Authority, that's municipal.
Okay, so this is the railroad station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, the white.
Well, where's the piece of property that the architect owns, one of these? Is it the
He is
27-101?
20-100,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
This
it's
one.
that close. huh?
So
Yeah.
this-
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
David Jakewith.
Right, right, we had that in front of us quite a bit.
Yeah.
And we actually had 27-101 in front of us, that was Mr. Allen, because his replacement septic system is a mound right down behind his house that is right on the border of the salt marsh.
So your thoughts on this parcel, Brent?
No,
Because it's undeveloped.
mostly because of the liability of having to take care of the house that's on it,
Mm,
the falling down wood frame house.
mm.
Borders the Raleigh River.
Now, I mean, the rest of the property, yes, would be good to preserve and protect, but the reality is it's subject to all sorts of protections, because it's in the ACEC and a number of other things.
Right.
But having the town own it with the liability of that potentially falling down wood frame structure
Yeah.
is not something that I believe the commission should indicate they want to take charge of.
This guy Jacobs might want it, the town puts it up for sale. But I can't think anybody else would, just so he could tear down the decrepit house,
Yeah.
have it over with.
You wanted to look at it?
Well, I could cut off something else and that could be course again.
So
It'd be no subject.
the next are two lots, and again, we return to the mortgage acquisition trust folks. These two lots have frontage on Route 1, Newburyport Turnpike.
Oh.
Where are we here?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it North Atlantic Contracting that is
Oh,
down
yeah.
in the right-hand corner there?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, next to
So-
the cabinet shop?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Central must be just off the map to the
Not
north?
central.
Weathersfield Street, where it intersects. So in the
Oh, yeah, you're right.
in the upper
Understood.
left-hand
Right,
corner,
right,
that's
right.
where Patrick can put in the common driveway that now goes up to 3 lots. This
Yeah,
pictometry photo was taken before those lots were cleared for
but we walked,
So these are
Residential
not developable?
we walked right,
I have no idea, but
It
they're,
should be.
Yeah, I can't imagine why they let them go. They
Yeah, I don't
certainly
know.
have frontage. Anyway, they're not
Might be-
conservation
might
they have
interest.
frontage, they
Might be
also
parking.
slope, I mean,
Pardon?
might be a parking problem.
There's some sort of wet connection that goes,
And those,
there's a little.
Those
yeah,
are-
there's a stream
yeah.
down here.
those
there
are,
is.
I think those are somewhat depressed.
They do, they slope down from Route 1,
Yeah.
you're right. We walked that when we were doing Patrick's
Yeah.
property, we walked
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, because we were exploring the alternative,
That's right.
potential alternative access, but I don't believe these have any conservation value
Nope. I
at
would
this
agree.
point in time.
Okay, agreed.
We have 2 other ones further north on Newburyport Turnpike. These are 506 and 516 Newburyport Turnpike.
Like a tour of the whole town.
They're sort of across the street from Samar's.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the,
One of them has the
That must
wetlands
be
in the
folks we
front.
just spoke with, right?
No,
This is
no,
gotta be the
no,
vineyard.
that's,
Condos that
No,
were,
yeah, that's the
That's
over
not-
55 condos.
Yeah.
where Kirk
19-7 is
What's the name of that place?
is the Mill River Winery.
yeah,
They went bankrupt.
And then 19-8-1A
that,
is Vernon Bell,
yeah, those,
That's the
that
one with
guy's
the big
been,
dead tree.
and that's also where we may have a cell tower
There's a big dead tree that's
application
Yeah.
coming through for.
huge.
This is the 19-1A is the guy who's.
1A is Vernon
storing-
Bell, that has
Storing,
the driveway and has his
Just
pool
stores his-
equipment and stuff.
Sorry,
storing his
put a
equipment
house
there,
back
yeah.
He wanted to build a house, but apparently he couldn't, so now we may see a cell tower proposal for him
I thought the town
Really?
only wants cell towers on town land.
there.
I'm not sure they have that.
I can
choice.
only comment because one of our recent ads happened to run right next to an ad in the town common for comments about historic properties that might be affected by the siting of a communication tower in this location.
In 1A.
Yes,
Yeah.
Hmm.
but there's been no application to any town board yet for it.
Mhm.
But anyway, these other 2 lots, there's that wetland system right on the frontage along one, but they're not contiguous or connected or adjacent to any previously conserved property, nor do they protect a stream corridor or floodplain, so
Yep.
my recommendation is to indicate no interest.
Where is the fence company? It's up here
Go
somewhere.
further up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think,
And what is this piece?
yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Is that the one?
This
that's a
is,
couple of
this
houses
is
on it?
undeveloped. I guess in the past, somebody may have thought about putting something back there, because this is definitely
Yeah.
a roadway
Yeah.
access.
Hmm.
Other than that, I don't know what to tell you.
This is,
There's been no activity or.
Fox Meadows, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot that goes back and eventually goes down to the Mill River somewhere, and it has a driveway and a couple of.
Yep. Certainly looks like a road access, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's further down.
But
That's-
there's no
this-
road.
we looked at those,
Is
this,
it north of this?
yeah. No, not,
So, this is more good deck than trust, so they may just not care about these 2 because they would be, they don't need frontage to plan on making a subdivision if they ever make it. Who knows? Anyway, it doesn't affect us, I mean,
Moving along.
must be getting to the end of this pile.
Saunders Lane, well, I got a couple more to go.
when I saw this on the agenda, I figured it would be 5 minutes.
well, like 55.
You got to admit, it's the most interesting thing.
Well, true, I agree with that. Saunders Lane.
Like a tour through most of the town.
Right. Refresh my memory as to what's
Uh,
on this land.
Saunders Lane
Bill
and
Todd's.
Pine Needle or Green
Oh,
Needle or
okay.
whatever the heck it is there.
Is that
Well,
that garage?
well, yes, that's that garage, yeah,
Oh, I know.
So,
for the advertising banner. So actually, we had a proposal from Frank Todd
yeah,
to put wetlands replication in this 1736-26.
I thought
And,
he did it.
and the other, he did.
Okay.
And then he sought closure from us. But he was only one of 3 partners. The rest of them bailed and left him the only one standing in town. But the interesting thing is that this parcel and another parcel that's across the street and much larger than it were supposed to be dedicated open space as part of the Saunders Lane development. So I pointed that out and actually even found that in 2010, I was alerted to the fact that unbeknownst to the town, the principals of the Saunders Lane development went and recorded a deed putting this parcel and this larger parcel across the street in the custody and care of the Conservation Commission as open space. Even though the town knew nothing about it, because of course the town was left with big outstanding tax liability. So I don't know what the status is, but we should definitely indicate interest in these. Number one, there's a wetlands replication area in here.
Do we owe ourselves?
And an intermittent stream, and it probably couldn't be developed anyway, but oh, by the way, as part of the definitive subdivision, it was supposed to be open space along with this other parcel across the street. So,
As long as we don't get a tax bill with it,
no,
that'll blow our budget.
we shouldn't. It's big, I mean, it's big property too. I've made small money, not that it means anything, just to show that it was labeled and intended. In fact, this parcel L, this triangular one, was even indicated as not being a buildable lot, right, when they did the definitive subdivision plans, so. Not sure that they would find a willing buyer for it to begin with, even if they wanted to peddle it.
That's on the recorded plan.
It's on the recorded plan.
That
yes.
was,
That could pose problems. Would you like to buy this buildable lot?
if you don't want that, I've got a bridge for sale.
That's right.
So,
In fact, I've
my
got,
recommendation is that we indicate that we believe this was supposed to be dedicated open space, and we'd like it, thank you very much.
it's already ours and we can't sell it.
How does that work?
I'll love it for
Yeah,
that.
this is the
Oh, so
great
drive
big
link.
building.
Build on
I think he may be using it that way, but he must have some other legal access.
it. This back body, the tennis court.
Also,
Well, there is some.
Well, that's a good question that was just raised over here on this end. This looks like how they're getting in. Again, is that the case?
well, do not go by where
Okay.
this is not registered or whatever. No, when we were actually there, no. I realize it looks like this,
Yeah.
but it actually you can kind of see there's a stone wall right here, and you can actually see sort of a straight
Yep.
shaded area there. That's where the boundary
That's
is, which
the
goes
boundary.
right to where.
That explains it.
Where's this one going?
Looks like that was an old-
See this right here? See, there's sort of a,
Mhm.
see, there's a little linear, there's kind of
Oh,
a
yeah,
linear
yeah,
shading
yeah,
to
yeah.
that. There's
Yeah.
actually like a stone wall in there or
Mhm.
something along. There used to be a woods road that went in there and went over into this parcel. In fact, Eric Grunstrom and the house that he tore down, the abandoned house that was back here, that was the woods road that went to the house. He got a permit from us. He bought the tax title property back. So the next parcel is Warren Realty, Warren Street Realty.
So you're Brooke.
Now, this was listed, the assessors listed this as being the rear of Pine Needle Lane, but I pointed out to them that Pine Needle Lane is nowhere near this part of town, and in fact,
Miles away.
what you see is Brook Street there, so I listed it as the rear of Brook Street. But it's not contiguous to anything, it's not adjacent to any previously conserved or preserved property, nor do I believe that it contains a whole stream corridor either, although it might. I really have no information about the lay of the land out there at all.
This is Brook Street,
Yes, that's Brook Street.
and there was a Brook Street extension on paper that Josette Costa wanted to put a house up there
Yes.
somewhere.
Yep.
All the way, because it goes over to Hillside if you keep going far enough, over to Weldon Farm Road.
Yeah, well, I saw that the commission denied that for, probably due to the extensive wetlands filling.
Might have had
Lack
something
of
to do with it.
The
replication.
reason it was denied is because there was alternative access up to Weathersfield Street
Ah.
that avoided a lot of the wetland issues.
Okay.
It's the only time that that happened that I know of since I've been on the commission, and just about that time, a horrendous real estate crunch hit the market. The developers who were, I
That's
think,
16,
teenage developers, I used to call them,
It looks like,
went bankrupt.
might be a little bit off on the
Well,
night.
It's never come back to
I
us.
think your denial was upheld though.
3, 4, 5 rule.
So my recommendation is no
No,
interest in
sure,
the
yeah.
Warren Street property.
Whether it's near Pine Needle Lane or not.
Yeah.
Someone from
really
Georgetown
not.
had one.
Finally, at the end of our perusal now, I obviously didn't set the order of these things because we're back in the Saunders Lane area again. This is the Walsh parcel at the end of 9 Walnut Drive, which does have a house on it. I have
Comes in the house?
no information about it at all.
I had to ask Brent, what is Walnut Drive? I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
This is Weathersfield.
Short little
This
street,
is
that's Saunders Lane
Saunders.
coming in
And
there.
this is this little
Oh,
sort
I
of
know that.
U
Oh,
there.
that's
Yeah, okay.
Kent's.
This
Okay.
isolated bit of,
We actually had
Land.
someone in
Right.
here
I didn't even know
for
there
the
was a
parcel
street. I didn't either.
1738.
I didn't know it was called Walnut Drive.
Good, yeah.
But
We had
that's,
someone come in, they were thinking of developing that, and they did some grading and stuff.
I'm confused.
And
What is this
RDA
road
for that
thing?
one.
this is Saunders Lane, this is Weathersfield, and this is that little loop where they meet. This is a piece of
Oh,
unbuilt
okay,
land
oh,
there.
okay, I know
So
where it is
who
now.
even knew there was a street that goes back?
It used to be called Pleasant Street,
We actually had an RDA
as
for
opposed to
this.
the Pleasant Avenue, or vice versa.
We had an
They
RDA for
renamed
some
it.
grading and stuff
That's
on this
this
one.
one here.
Did we?
Yeah.
Way shaped.
Well, I've forgotten that.
But
Doesn't
anyway,
address
there's-
exactly. It used to
my
be called
recommendation
Pleasant
is no
Street, but there was a Pleasant
conservation
Road in
interest
town,
in that.
so
Oh,
I
too
renamed
confusing.
it. Creatively.
Mail delivery.
Well, again, we don't want a house.
No.
911 didn't like it, so.
This guy used to be my auto mechanic.
Oh, yeah?
Forget his name, he's dead now. Nice guy.
You concur that we have no interest in that parcel?
So, with you there. All right. Well, this next item might actually be a 5-minute item, so. The next item is discussion of naming considerations for the so-called Girl Scouts property. I'm not sure why we as a commission would have an input on this. Except
Well-
this commission, I mean,
Well,
it's
it's-
conservation.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I have to
I would
recuse
think-
myself.
Well, my,
From the name?
I don't want a crappy name for this.
Should live next to it.
this topic is being broached because I've had some conversations with Bob Mary, and he believes that there should be some consideration given to the historic ownership of the bulk of the property. I just hate referring to it as the Girl Scout property. I think we should have a better name for it, or a different name. So I would suggest that this get referred to the selectmen for their consideration with hopefully our input on it. But just to let you know that the Girl Scouts acquired 3 parcels. One parcel was basically 75 acres, and that was owned by Paul Thurston Dodge and John D. Bradstreet.
Yep.
So that was one deeded acquisition. The second deeded acquisition was directly from Paul Thurston Dodge solely, and that was 32 acres. And then the final third property that was assembled, that now is the ownership, came from Amos D. Carroll and was 100 acres. Now, Carroll actually was the
Amos D. Carroll of Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
right. Well, his title was an inheritance from his mother, was Bertha Carroll Batchelder. And that property apparently came from a deed of land, that land was owned by Ann M. Smith to Edward L. Batchelder. So I believe that was the Smith homestead that was on Smith Lane.
Smith Lane, right.
Okay, so just to let you know that, and this I think is one of the reasons why Selectman Bob Mary believes that there should be consideration to the historic ownership and settlement of that.
But which historic?
Well, he thinks, but I would rather let him express his opinion directly, which is why I'm suggesting that this be
So I have to ask him.
laterally moved to the selectmen for
I think
their
we can rule out
consideration.
Bradstreet just because we already have one of those.
Right.
Right. So that leaves Dodge.
Or
Well,
Smith.
Smith.
Or Smith.
But I'll be honest with you, I've been referring to our previously owned conservation area out there with the cell tower
As the Smith. Lane
as
property.
being the Smith Lane Conservation Area, which
Right.
I hope the commission would consider that
So
Rec-
it seems like-
recognizes.
Let me tell you, as a short-term resident of this town, at least my family is, the Dodgers have been here for ages,
Yeah.
or at least were here. I'm not aware of any alive now, but then owned throughout the town.
Right.
I'm talking almost since it was settled.
So the Dodge might make sense.
Mr. Mary said to me that he would like to see it named the Paul Dodge Conservation Area.
I think I would-
Mr. Berry has, you know, probably the most informed opinion of just about anybody in this town on a subject like that.
There may be some other considerations attendant to this that I would not want to share on camera. But what I would share on camera is that, what's the name of Ruth, a woman who lived way out in the marshes and donated all that property to the town?
Oh, Ruth Alexander?
Ruth Alexander, her maiden name was Batchelder. And I think she was from that family because she wanted, and Batchelder Brook is named after that family. And she told me years ago that she and her husband had looked at our property to buy it, but they wound up seeing the place out in the marshes and bought that instead. I would think that because their Batchelder Brook flows through the Girl Scout camp, and that is also a historic name associated with the property, and in view of the extensive gifts to the town from Ruth and her husband, that a case might be made equally for that to be a consideration to the selectmen.
Well, and, yeah, maybe Batchelder Brook Conservation Area has a nice ring to it. And that's
However,
respectful of that.
isn't some of the land that they gave named for her?
I don't know.
There was talk about making the Rough Meadows parcel named after, I believe it was her, but
I
we didn't,
wouldn't be surprised if there were.
Yeah,
we didn't end up doing that,
Chandler-
but.
Yeah, the Chandler family contributed more substantially, which is why.
Right, but they were, somebody was looking for, for a name that would, commemorate,
Yeah.
pretty sure it was Alexander.
Yeah.
Paul Dodge, that picture you were showing of the area that's owned by the stables now, and the Ipswich Bay Glass area lot, I think he owned all that, and all the land across the street from me was the
Yeah.
Dodge, all those orchards. And that went to the place where the Mill River Winery is now. And Paul
There were
lived,
there were two brothers, so it wasn't just Paul, I can't remember about the brother's name.
and Paul lived in the second house down Weathersfield Street
It's-
from the corner where the flashing light is. And he and his wife for years, and when we first moved to town, he was, I think, in his 90s, and he'd walk all the way up to your house every day and then come back down until the area got built up and the dogs came after him. And he couldn't do that, but there's some other interesting stories associated with Paul, and I'm not gonna go into one, I can't.
Well, I think in a way, Brent, what you said is what we should do, is just say that we think this is a matter appropriate for the selectmen to consider. But one or more of us might want to attend the meeting they consider it at and
Right.
offer these opinions. I mean, it's an interesting topic, it's not about conservation, but. Any other input?
Okay, and make that request for their
Yep.
consideration.
We had a couple suggestions, so.
If the idea of putting it on our agenda came from Bob Murray, I appreciate that deference to us, that thought that we should at least
Well,
get some thought.
Like I said, it also came from me because I just would like to,
Get
I
it
would like to
renamed.
refer to the
Yeah.
property by some non-terra that isn't just related to the camp, because the camp is gonna continue on, and they can call the camp, if they wanna call the camp the historic name of the camp, Camp Pennacook or whatever.
Oh, you mean the camping activity?
Right.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
buildings.
that portion of the property, but
Right.
the rest, the substantial portion of the property that's been dedicated to being open space and conservation land, I
Right.
think should
Right,
have
right.
some type of appropriate designation.
Call it the old Nancy Conservation Area. Bob might appreciate that.
Well, it's the only place in town he could probably fire the camp now. It is so damn much function.
Do you know that the town of Raleigh was once part of the original gerrymander, or the gerrymander?
What it was named, the gerrymander was named
However
after?
however you pronounce it, but
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
there are several towns, but Raleigh is one of them, and that could be another name for the gerrymander conservation.
I just realized that Georgetown has on its town hall side,
Yeah.
home of old Nancy. That's a wonder,
Sultan.
not even true.
that's
Yeah.
okay, they call themselves New Raleigh, so, that's right on the
Old
town
Raleigh.
seal.
Yeah,
Georgetown
they used to
is
be
new
part of
Raleigh.
Raleigh.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
So just while we're talking about that, Monday afternoon, I removed the no trespassing signs from the Smith Lane entrance behind Harris Park into this new conservation area. And posted our wildlife study signs and a couple of our boundary markers, just
With your snowshoes
just to
on.
kind of. No, I went specifically, well, remember the temperatures yesterday were just as balmy as they were today. Today was 1 or 2 degrees warmer. I did that specifically because I knew the snow would be frozen
You
and
could
I could
walk on
walk on
top.
it without
Yeah.
having to get the
Yeah.
snowshoes.
Yeah.
So I could have done snowshoes, but it was easier to do, it's easier to do signs.
Snow's hard as a rock. the last
So
few
I
days.
took down 5 no trespassing signs. So I didn't think that was very friendly for conservation.
Oh,
It's supposed to be open to the public now.
Yeah, we paid.
Now that we don't have to worry about insurance agents.
so hard to sue a county.
Right.
So I believe I may have passed out a request to you, letter that I received from Mass Audubon directed to us for them to do invasive species control, both Phragmites and perennial pepperweed in the Great Marsh. They had identified 2 parcels that previously were designated as municipal ownership, but those parcels weren't actually in the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. And one of those we sold off to Fish and Wildlife last year, 29-4. They also asked about 30-29. Both of those are tied to Dyke Street, which is way in the William Forward Wildlife Management area. We're way behind Mansion Drive. And, so I contacted Mass Audubon. They were one of the people I had the funny email experience with, because we did issue a determination of applicability for invasive species control, but these parcels weren't listed, so I informed them that if they did wish to conduct invasive species plant removal, they would need to file a new determination. And plus, I would recommend that this be sent to the Board of Selectmen for their consideration, since the remaining parcel that is in municipal ownership, 30-29, is just general municipal property and therefore subject to the authorization of the selectmen for any activities to occur there.
Yep.
But I fully support, obviously fully
Marsh,
support
yeah.
invasive species control in the Great Marsh.
Right. Okay.
So with your concurrence, I will send that on. to
Yep.
the selectmen. And just the final note, I asked for and received permission from Raleigh Municipal Light Department to post those wildlife signs on Smith Lane, on the corridor, the poles that hold up the power lines and communications lines for the cell tower. Since they belong to Raleigh Municipal Light, I asked for their permission to use their poles for some of that signage, since that's where people start walking in. I wanted to get that signage in as quickly. In other words, if somebody had already started to walk down the road thinking they were going to go hunting or whatever, I'd rather have them see this right off at the rear of the ball field instead of get halfway, quarter mile down the road there and then realize that the town wasn't going to allow hunting in there due to safety concerns with hikers and stuff.
I thought that was a nice piece of communication work you did there, Brent, in getting in touch with the cell tower folks, and I noticed in their letter saying that it was all right with them, that they expressed their appreciation for you having done that. I was talking about.
Not cell tower, you mean?
Yeah,
electric
Mr.
light.
Folden,
Yeah.
Whatever,
the manager of.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Raleigh Light.
He appreciated being asked. Right.
And I believe that's all I have.
That's it. Then need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No against? Nobody ever votes against that.
Hasn't happened yet.
Everyone votes against that.